The SparkView app is something that I use with a set of sensors that I have in class. If I download the SparkView app, given that I have a bunch of sensors that can connect to the iPad via Bluetooth, I'm going to go ahead and connect a temperature sensor to this to demonstrate it. But I have a lot of sensors for my science class that I use, and I currently connect them to Chromebooks, but it's much more intuitive and easy to use on an iPad. I'm going to go ahead and run a graph, and you can't see this, but I have a thermometer in my hand, and as I warm it up you can see it change. In its basic form with the SparkView app, what I can do is when I have a lab where we're taking data, I can easily have the students graph their data and examine it. This comes in really helpful when I teach motion, because we can do a lot of graphs where, I'm going to go ahead and stop this and demonstrate it, where we can go and examine the graph. We can look at different points of it and see the slope of the line and do a bunch of different things to make math connections there as well. In addition to basic labs, I haven't had a lot of experience with this, but they do have a lot of pre-made labs that you can do within it. I'm considering if I can get my, when we redo our curriculum, if I can get my principal to get on board with ordering a lab-based curriculum based off the SparkView apps, of trying to get a class set of iPads to run our labs on. But SparkView has a lot of functions like that. It's a really neat app to experiment with, and it really allows my science class to be a hands-on interactive class. Right, an app that I have found really useful for science class is the PHET interactive app. This has a lot of interactive simulations that students can work with, and has it in all different areas of science, but chemistry and physics have a lot of really good ones. I really like to use this for chemistry because it allows students to see things that normally would just have to discuss. So this is one I used recently with my classes, and they accessed it on Chromebooks, but I think it's much cleaner and easier to work with on the iPad. But it allows students to look at molecules in a way. I'm going to start with water here, where they can manipulate different variables, such as temperature. Here, as we heat it up, we can see how the molecules are changing from a solid to a liquid and then into a gas. They can also manipulate different variables like volume, and they can add more particles to the substance. But it really allows students to see what goes on at the atomic level when we change different variables. In addition to just the simulations, if you log on via a computer, you can get different lesson plans and things that have been developed that teachers have developed to go along with some of these simulations. And it's just a really cool resource with a lot of different things that you can do. I'm going to show one other one that I think is pretty neat here, John Travoltage. And there's some sound that goes with this. I don't know if it'll come through on this, but we talk about static electricity and what happens when you build up static charge and then it gets released. But there's a lot of neat interactives like this that if I had a set of iPads in the classroom, I could see kids really getting involved with. The next app I'd like to share is the Google Science Journal. This app is available on phones, on Chromebooks, and on the iPad. And like with most things, it just tends to work a little bit better and be easier to use on an iPad with a touch screen. But as I open this up, there's a couple things you can do with it. Students could, as part of an experiment that they're doing in class, write their observations, take pictures and things like that, and access the photos. The real power on this that I find is that it takes the sensors that are on an iPad or a phone, and you can use them to do experiments. For example, a couple years ago, I, for a physics unit, wanted to buy accelerometers. But then I discovered the Google Science Journal app, and I could have my students download it to their phones and you have a very sensitive three-dimensional accelerometer on the phone that we can use in class that's free and better than any accelerometer I could buy. So what this looked like in class is I had kids going out and doing different movements with their phones. You can see how as I shake the iPad, the accelerometer changes. There are a lot of experiments, if you dig around in the Google Science Journal app, available that are sort of pre-made that teachers have developed. I'm a little bit leery of using the accelerometer in some of the experiments because it involves movement, and I'd be afraid that I would maybe break something if the kids aren't careful. Also, a lot of the accelerometer experiments are better off with a smaller device like a cell phone. In addition, it has a barometer. It'll access the light sensor to determine brightness, which can be used for a lot of light experiments. The compass. The magnometer detects magnetic fields. So I've used this before to do experiments with detecting magnetic fields, such as those given off by electronic devices. And there's a lot of neat experiments you can do with the sound sensor on an iPad or iPhone. So bottom line, this is a neat tool to bring into the classroom. I'm showing it here on an iPad, and certainly a lot of these experiments would be appropriate for an iPad. But it's really cool if the students put this on their phone because the phone is a little bit more mobile. But as a science teacher, it's nice because these are sensors that I normally would have to buy separately, but they're coming with the device. The next app I want to take a look at is the Google Classroom app for the iPad. Nothing tremendous here. It's the same thing that's on the computer, but where this helps me as a teacher with the iPad is I can examine student work and share it with them while I'm moving around the classroom. It's a lot easier than carrying around my laptop computer and trying to do the same thing. I can also do a lot of my grading on here as I have downtime in class where maybe the students are working on something. I can have my iPad on me and be on top of them while I'm looking at things. I do a lot of my grading in the morning when I'm watching kids for morning duty, so I can bring up things that they worked on in class, take a look at their work, type in a little bit of feedback, and do that on the fly. And I also like having the students turn things in lab-wise via Google Classroom because frankly I can read it a lot easier than when we're doing things on paper and turning things in. I like this interface overall. I think it saves a lot of paper in my classroom. Part of the switch to going to more computer-based stuff is saving cost with using less paper, so this allows me to do that. And the iPad is just a clean, mobile, easy way to use Google Classroom. The final app I want to look at is Power Teacher, the app. So a lot of school districts, including mine, use Power Teacher for attendance and for grades. What this allows me to do is be a little bit more mobile. I can move around the classroom and take attendance. I use this in class quite a bit if I'm checking an assignment, like a homework assignment, pretty much just for completion. What I can do is bring the assignment up. This is an assignment kids turned in the other day. And I can see all my students, a lot of zeros in there for this particular assignment. But I can go around the room and do a quick spot check and check in with them using the iPad. Again, this is something I could do with a computer, but it's a lot easier this way. I can take my daily attendance using the app. And also I can check in with students and take a look at their grades, see how they're doing, and sometimes if the student hasn't turned in a couple assignments, I can walk over, sit beside them with my iPad and sort of show them what they missed and what they need to do. So it's just another tool to make things a little bit easier in the classroom.